direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
Okay, come on, let's get this moving. Hey everybody, it's Billy Masters. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. Today, thank you, Monica. Oh my God, it's a Tuesday. It is a rare Tuesday, Billy Masters Live. Tuesday, November 22nd. Wait, now I've got to get my leg because I'm in like the lotus position and my leg just fell asleep. Typically we don't do shows on Tuesdays, but this year, obviously, it's Thanksgiving this week. And I remember the first year we were doing these shows. God, can you believe this is like the third year of doing these shows? COVID has been with us like a long time. And be careful out there. Those of you who are traveling for the holidays, be really careful. I mean, I'm not one of those alarmists telling people don't go out, whatever. But, just be careful because they're predicting that there's lots of variants. It's easy to catch things. You don't want to get sick. Just be careful. But anyway, I remember our first year when we were doing these shows, Charles Bush joined me. I was in Fort Lauderdale at the beach house because we had mold. I had toxic mold. Isn't it amazing? I'm still alive. All the things I've had. Wait till you hear the things that have happened to my guest. But there was mold. So I had to go down there and deal with the mold. And I wasn't able to be with my family. And it occurred to me that so many of you couldn't be with your families. And so I thought that I would do a show just to keep everybody company on the holiday. And it was one of my favorite Thanksgivings, actually. And I sat down with Charles Bush and we ate dinner and we chatted. And it was just a lovely Thanksgiving. So I am not doing that this year. I'm back with the old people. I'm back with those parents of mine who are doing fine, by the way. They're like 100 years old and they haven't gotten COVID once. But, okay, don't tell anyone. I think my mother did have it. She's in denial. And those home tests told her she didn't have it. I think she had it. But, everybody, that was like a couple months ago. Everybody is fine. And we're moving on. My guest today is, he was one of the first guests we had when we started. I looked back. He was in episode 11. We're like now in episode like 120. We're in the third season. It's crazy. And he is one of my favorite people I'm looking for. Look, there we are. There are Billy and Greg Louganis. I have pictures when I was like in I keep saying high school. I think I was in college. So as I said in my column, which you can read for free. Look, wait, hold on. There's a banner here. There you go, right there. Check out billymasters.com. The column is there every week, or pick up your local gay paper. But I said this in the column. When I was in high school, Greg Louganis was an idol. And he really was. He was an idol of mine. I was a young diver, and I just looked at him with awe and amazement. When I was in college, I got to do a coaching session with him. I mean, it wasn't just me. There were a lot of us. But anyway, I was there. So, I had a training session with him. And he was a coach, and he was really, at that point, he became a real person to me. And then once I came out and was an older gay man, he really became an example and a legend and a friend. I'm really glad to call him a friend. And I'm proud to have him back here with us, Greg Louganis.
Hey, Billy.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Do you age ever? I mean, ever? I mean, look at the picture behind you. Oh, yeah. Oh, hair and lines. You can't take away from that bone structure. And you are, now, you didn't find out too much later, but you are part American Indian. You have like a very interesting mix.
No. So my biological father is Samoan.
Yes.
And my biological mother is Northern European, English, and
oh,
yeah. So it's a combination.
And you were raised in with a Greek father.
Right. My name's Greek, and I was raised in a Greek church. So,
Right. I was raised in the Albanian church, so I
yeah,
know exactly what it's
yeah,
like.
Greek Orthodox. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you didn't you and I saw a picture. Was it your father, your birth father that you reunited with, or did you meet
Yeah.
both parents?
Well, yeah, I've met both of my parents, but after the '84 Olympic Games,
Uh-huh.
I was doing an appearance with Speedo in
Mhm.
Honolulu, and so the person who was hosting me said, "Greg, your father's here." I said, "Oh, my father wouldn't be. He's in San Diego. He would have told me if he was coming to Hawaii."
Mhm.
No, 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 your birth father. And he wanted to meet me. And he asked if I wanted to meet him. I said, yeah, yeah. So I was a little skeptical because it was right after the '84 Olympic Games. And so
And you were pretty famous.
yeah. So, but year after year, and anytime I'd go back to Hawaii, then he would always meet me at my events, and he'd always see me off at the airport and load me up with chocolate covered macadamia nuts and pineapples and all these things from the islands, and told me if I ever needed anything from the islands, then he'd get it to me. And so
Wow.
through the years, I just figured he never asked me for anything. And, I just figured, yeah, that's probably my dad. And so when I was in Hawaii for the LGBTQAI Film Festival with Back on
Mhm.
Board, I told Johnny, my now ex-husband, but we're still friends. We're still good friends. So
Oh, good.
yeah, and so
I was going to ask that, so that's
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. And so I told Johnny, I said, don't be surprised if my father shows up. And he said, Greg, your father's been dead for since '91. And I said, no, 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 my biological father. And sure enough, he showed up, and he was there with my half sister. And then I heard that there was going to be Lutu, that's his last name, Lutu,
Mhm.
family reunion the following year. And so I reached out to my half brother, Malcolm, and I said, do you think it'd be okay if I came? And he goes, oh my God, if you talk about us, then we can talk about you. And we don't have to, like, because they were trying to protect my privacy.
Oh,
And
so the rest of the family didn't, like the extended family didn't know.
well, they heard things,
Mm,
but it was like, they were just trying to respect my privacy.
which is
And
great.
so I figured, well, I should probably find out, through, I did ancestry.com. So
Mhm.
make sure DNA wise, that he was in fact my father. And it was verified through a cousin that we are related, and said, yeah, 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 you're Fuvali's son. And so,
Wow.
but what I wasn't expecting is I got a message from ancestry.com, and they said, look, I know who you are, and you came up as a leaf on our family tree, and the only thing we can think of is that you might be my aunt's son. And so then she had a conversation with her aunt, and her aunt said, well, if you were conceived in Midway, born in San Diego, and your father's name is Fuvali Lutu, she's my mom. So
Wow.
so I found my mom when I did the ancestry.com DNA.
Did you meet her too?
Yeah, we met. I actually went to a niece. As soon as we met on Thanksgiving, and then the following year,
Oh, how funny.
um, my my niece was getting married, and so she asked if I would go to the wedding, and I went to the wedding. And then my half brother John, on my mother's side, was getting married in September, so I went to his wedding. So it was, kind of an awful lot all at once.
Yeah,
Uh,
that you have a whole other family that you didn't know about.
yeah, yeah.
Do you look like any of them? Do you resemble? Who do you resemble?
Well, I definitely see myself and my dad,
Really?
and also, I mean, Malcolm, my half brother, when
Mhm.
we were young, there's no mistaking we were brothers. But
Really?
now that we're older, he looks more Chinese American,
Mhm.
or Chinese Hawaiian,
Mhm.
because that was his mother. And
Oh.
so yeah, so but yeah, there's still a lot of similarities I see. It's so
Did you
funny.
think of? Oh, go ahead.
I'll be standing with my dad, talking to my dad, and watching some of his mannerisms, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. It's just so strange how genetics work.
It's funny because my mother, when she has seen me on stage, she will say to me, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but my father used to say, don't look up. And she's like, and when you're on stage, you always look up. And she's like, and I don't do it anymore, but you still have that trait that I
Right.
had.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you don't realize it. It's
yeah.
bizarre, families. And were you interested in trying to find your birth family when you were a kid?
I was interested in finding my dad because I knew that he wanted me. Um,
How
because
did you know that?
well, I was really I spent my 13th birthday in juvenile hall. I mean, I was such a little shit. And I feel bad for my parents, but one of the things that kind of came out with my acting out was that I wanted to learn more about my biological roots. And so one of the things that came out was I wanted to meet my biological father.
Hmm.
And what I what was conveyed to me when I had the meeting with the nurses who were involved with my adoption, because all of the records had been burned, and so there was no real kind of paper trail to find out facts and stuff like that. But one of the women said, "Yeah, your father wanted to raise you." And in
Wow.
in the Polynesian culture, I mean, that you don't give your children away. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and they may be raised by an aunt or a cousin or something like that, but you don't give your children away. But because my mother was only 16 when she had me, my dad had no say in what
Mm.
happened. So, but it was funny because just recently I went back to Hawaii for a friend of mine was having his 50th birthday, so he wanted to do
Hmm.
like a celebration, an event,
Oh, sure.
and all that. So he invited me to be a part of that. And so while I was there, it was also my dad's birthday, and it was also my half sister's birthday. And
Oh, wow.
Malcolm, my half brother, he was having his 40-year high school reunion. And so he asked if I wanted to go with him, and I said, "Oh yeah, sure. So that'd be fun, see what it was like, him growing up." And Kahio, she asked me. She said, "When did you know that you were connected to Malcolm?" I said, "I didn't know until I was 24. It was after the '84 Olympic Games. I was 24, and then I met Fuvali, and I met Malcolm and Sherilyn and Geraldine and Jerry, his wife.
Hmm.
And so that's when I knew. And Kahio, she said, "Oh my God, I remember when Malcolm found out that he was connected to you. He was 14."
Wow.
Because what happened was my dad, Fuvali, he was hearing this story about this young boy from San Diego, this diving phenom, and he's adopted. His biological father's Samoan and his mother's Northern European. And then he saw me on TV and he recognized me. He said, "Oh my God, there's my boy."
Because you said that you look like your half
Because
brother.
yeah, because he had another one at home. And so that's when Malcolm knew that we were connected.
Wow. It just must be wonderful, to have these people that you kind of didn't know were out. I mean, you knew were out there, but then all of a sudden materialized, and it is a large extended family.
Oh yeah, I mean it was when I went to the Lutu family reunion, there were like 200 plus people, and
Wow.
Malcolm said, "Oh, this is a light turnout," uh, because I had a great, I don't know if it was a great or great, how many greats grandpa who had 25 kids,
Oh,
five
wow.
different women, but 25 kids. So yeah, so they were quite prolific.
So your adopted family, did they get to know any of this journey?
Well, in '84, when I met my dad, I had a conversation with my mom and asked her how she felt about that.
Mm.
And so we did talk about that. She said that she wasn't concerned about me meeting my biological father, but she did have concerns me meeting my mother because she was
Oh,
afraid she would be rather needy. And so, and actually, that's rather true. She had her concerns, and her concerns were warranted. But yeah, it's, and navigating that whole thing now with Ancestry.com and 23andMe, people finding siblings and relatives, and what do you do with that? It's just navigating it. And
well, because we're not raised to deal with those things. One of my best friends found out that her mother, who is deceased,
Mhm.
had a child before her that
Yeah.
she gave up. And it came out through one of these. I feel like they should be sponsoring this show because I didn't know we were going to go down this rabbit
Right,
hole.
right.
But you hear these stories, and then she found out that her mother's sister also had a child. I said, did everybody have children out of wedlock that we never knew about until now?
Well, you don't talk about those things back
Yeah,
in.
and you can't hide from science.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and also I learned that my half brother on my mother's side,
Mm-hmm.
they grew up in El Cajon, Santee, Lakeside area, and so
Okay.
our paths had to have crossed. Just with I mean, El Cajon's small.
Did anyone else have like diving or gymnastic skills that you've heard about?
You know what? It's interesting because my brother Malcolm, he was number 2 in the world strongman.
Wow.
And when I met him when I was 24, so he would have been what, 22. He was into bodybuilding and weightlifting and that sort of thing. Then he moved into this strongman, and I've seen videos of him, dragging a truck across a football field, and I mean some crazy stuff. But yeah, he was yeah, he did quite well. He was also on the police force in Honolulu, and he just retired. He just recently retired. And then my
Can you
dad,
believe that? Wow.
yeah, my dad was a boxer.
Oh,
Dad,
so they were
there
sports
was some,
people.
yeah, so there was some athleticism in the family for sure.
But certainly not the same. I mean, what as somebody who dove on a much smaller scale, I keep watching where diving has gone in like the past 20 or 30 years, even the past 10. And it's extraordinary how the sport has really exploded. And I don't remember people being so excited about diving before you.
Yeah, well, I mean, diving was something that happened once every 4 years, and they kind of celebrated us. I think that I think there was a real shift because I was around for a long time, you know,
That's true.
and
How
so,
many Olympic Games?
well, I
3?
qualified for 4.
Right. Oh, you're right.
76 was Montreal. I was 16, and I got a silver medal there. Qualified for the 1980, but we didn't send a team. And then 2 golds in '84, 2 golds in '88. And really, I mean, in that period of time was really a golden time for diving in the US,
Oh, yeah.
because we also had Bruce Kimball,
Hmm.
and USA Diving really benefited from that, because it was, Bruce and I would go back and forth, nationally.
Hmm.
Once we got on the international stage, then he was up there. He was up there. Um,
Did 80 really, pulling out of 80, I can't even imagine being an athlete, gearing your life for those 4 years towards that. What does that do to you? I mean, it must be so deflating.
it was. I mean, I was 20 at the time, so I was thinking nobody can take the Olympics away from us. There's no
Right.
way. It wasn't going to happen. So I just trained as if I was going to be going, and I did, and it really didn't hit me until after the Olympic trials. And we're going to Washington, D.C. to celebrate the Olympic athletes who made the team but weren't going. And we were going to China. We were sent to China and Japan. And so, that's when it really hit.
Yeah,
And
I bet.
so,
You did Worlds that year, didn't you?
yeah. So 2 years prior to the Olympic Games was Berlin, the World
Mhm.
Championships in Berlin, which I won 10-meter platform, and then 2 years after the Olympic Games was the World Championships in Guayaquil, Ecuador, and I remember that competition because when we were introduced, we go reverse order of finish
Mhm.
in the prelims. So then I was the last diver because I won the prelims. And I remember that they introduced Alexander Portnoy, Olympic gold medalist, 1980. And then they introduced me, Greg Louganis, the United States, Olympic silver medalist, 1976. And what I had in my head was like, oh my God, I always wanted my performance to speak for itself and not have to speak for my performance.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, okay, you won the gold medal because I wasn't there. And
Right.
so I was like, I had something to prove. And as it turned out, I mean, I think it was the highest point margin that a world championships had ever been won. And
Between 1 and 2.
yeah, because I remember going into the last dive, I was checking the scoreboard to make sure that the dive number was right.
Mhm.
And I saw my score flashing on the board, which meant that I won. I didn't have to do my
Right.
last dive.
So
And
everything else is going to be the spread.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it was just really, yeah. So I let my performance speak for itself.
Are you somebody who, when you really want it because you have something to prove, does that drive you, or does that, hinder you in some way because there's so much at stake?
Well, for me, it inspired me.
Hmm.
It's all how you look at pressure. Like if you look at it as pressure, then you're more apt to implode. If you look at
Sure.
it as inspiration,
Hmm.
then you can really accelerate the possibilities of what possibly is you might be capable of.
And do you rise beyond even your expectations in those moments? Or
Oh,
has there ever been a moment that you've said, "Oh, this dive was fantastic. Why wasn't this in a competition?" Or have your best moments been in competition?
well, you know what you have to, and in working with athletes in
Hmm.
preparation for the Olympic Games and preparation for World Championships, I stress to them that they have to train as if they are at the Olympic Games or they are on the world stage,
Right.
because you what you're going to deliver in a performance on the Olympic stage, you've already done in practice. You have to
Hmm.
train that way. You have to prepare. Like when I went to my first Olympics in 1976, I was only 16, but everything was about from my coach to beat Klaus DiBiase.
Hmm.
And so he would set up those situations for me in my head. I said, okay, Klaus is leading by 12 points. You need nines on this. And in my training sessions. And so sometimes I was successful, sometimes I wasn't. So you have to do that in practice.
And really, so that you don't choke in the moment.
Yeah, because that's all your preparation. That's your homework. That's what you're supposed to do so that when you show up at the Olympic Games that you've already been there.
Right. And it seems like, you went from strength to strength to strength, and then, and again, 4 times qualifying for Olympic Games. That's pretty remarkable as it is,
Yeah.
and really left on top.
Yeah, I mean, I retired after the '88 Olympic Games. I mean, I the '88 Olympic Games there was so much going on. I was in an abusive relationship, and I
Right.
was diagnosed HIV positive 6 months prior to those Olympic Games. And had they known my HIV status, I wouldn't have been allowed in the country. So they had travel bans at that time. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, I think people forget what that time was like. That it was
Right.
scary, and I going through your stuff. It's amazing how much you forget, and you forget that moment when you hit your head, what that was, and it was, and now we know what was going on in your life. How do you compartmentalize and get back up there? It's hard enough to get back up there if nothing else is going on, but you were able to do it under extraordinary conditions.
Well, that was all my training all my
Yeah.
life, because I started dance and acrobatics when I was a year and a half. I started
Mm.
performing on stage when I was 3. And if we had a recital, if we had a talent competition or whatever, if you sprain your ankle, you just tape it up and get back out there and smile like nothing's happening, the show must go on.
Right. I mean, that's how I was trained the same way. And
Yeah,
I have a friend who sits there and says, "Oh my God, that's so horrible to tell kids the show must go on. Why must it?" And I said, "Because you've made a commitment. It's a
right.
discipline."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I was always the type of kid that looked forward to the audience. I
Mhm.
always did much better, whatever I was doing, whether I was a musician as well. So whether I was performing or even as a diver, I liked an audience. That really fueled me. Were you good with an audience or were you better on your own?
Um, well, the audience, I mean, it really inspires you.
Mm.
It really inspires you. It kind of gives you that shot of adrenaline that you're able to push through or challenge yourself. And I love those challenges because I'm innately very shy, and I don't speak up for myself a lot of times, and so that's just who I am innately. But put me on stage, perform.
Yeah, I we're going to show some things that you're auctioning off, but and some of them have to do with, your diving side, but also your performing side.
Mhm.
Did you think to yourself ever that you wanted to go through the showbiz side rather than the sports side before you had the success? If you had to make that decision.
Well, my first love was dance and
Mm.
acrobatics, and I just loved that. So, I love performing in college in musical theater, and I made my professional theatrical debut with Cinderella,
Yep.
and
Long Beach, right?
yeah, Long Beach Civic Light Opera.
Right.
So it was an amazing cast with Pat Carroll and Juliet Lambert and Catherine Scatula, Pamela Myers. It was just a really wonderful, wonderful group.
And was that the goal when you got out of diving that you would just transition into the acting, into the performing arts?
Well, that was my major in college. College,
Oh, okay.
I was a drama major. So yeah, so I I I wanted to be prepared, with
Hmm.
anything that might be thrown at me.
And
And
let me tell people because I saw you for the very first time. It was Jeffrey off
Jeffrey,
Broadway, and you went in, and the show was a hit at that point,
right?
and you
I
were
went in for
so
Brian Bass.
touching, right?
I
And you
went
were
for Brian
so
Bass.
touching. It was such a beauty, and I can still in my mind see your exit, your last moments, which
Yeah,
was so beautifully lit and so touching. I mean, if people, I don't want to root. It's not like they can go see it,
right.
although I'm sure there's a video somewhere. Um, but you were so beautiful in that, and I thought to myself, "Oh, look at that! He's not just a diver; he's an actor
Right.
as well."
Did you ever make it to the one man show I did?
I
Dan
didn't see
Butler?
the Dan Butler show. I
Yeah,
didn't. No, it
that
was, but I
was,
heard you were great in that.
oh my God, that was like, I don't know, we climb a lot of mountains, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was a mountain that
How
was,
many characters? do you
14
play in
different
that?
characters.
I mean,
14,
that's what's extraordinary about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And taking over from the person who wrote for himself, his
Right,
show,
right.
being handpicked by him. No, I do remember, though, seeing you also, because I've seen you a lot of times, because we talked afterwards. Nonsense Amen,
Oh
Hollywood,
my God.
Florida.
Oh, that
Oh,
was so much fun.
Oh, well, because that was the thing about that is that I'm sitting there watching this saying, I don't know if I've seen anyone have more fun on stage than
Yeah, it
that
was so
moment.
fast. Oh my God, it
And
was,
I also remember because you were traveling with the dogs because I came
yeah,
backstage and you had the dogs with you had the crates in the theater.
yeah, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
mean you've had such a remarkable
I know I
life.
had Nipper, but did I have Freeway with me too?
I think you did. Yeah,
Really?
I think you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
both. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was, and oh, so you and I were talking before the show. So last time you were here, and I surprised you with Kent, but I had my dog Lily, who's there way on the left. So Lily is a Papillon. She is a senior dog, and this is my first time with a 15-year-old dog. Now you're like the expert on this, so. I had said to you that, I have friends that are vets and they're like, oh, you should see what's going on. You might want her to be on medication. There may be procedures. I said, at 15, I just want her to be comfortable
Right.
and let me know what she needs. What is your experience with senior dogs?
Well, I feel that way too.
Mm.
Yeah, because Nipper, well, with my Great Danes, generally the life expectancy for a Great Dane is 6 to 8 years, and
No, really?
short. Yeah, it's a
Oh, I
heartbreak.
didn't know that,
And Freeway lived to be 10, and
which is
Ryan
amazing then.
Ryan lived to be 10. So that's pretty up there. And then Nipper and Dobby both lived to be, I think, 17, almost 17.
Wow.
So yeah, and really it is about keeping them comfortable, and
Hmm.
happy. I remember with Freeway, I knew it was time because he was a bit incontinent, and you can just see it in his eyes. And then with with Dobby, he started going blind, uh,
Oh, yeah.
which he was afraid of shadows. I guess he was probably just seeing shadows, so he
Hmm.
he became rather fearful. But for the most part, I just protected him as much as I could and made sure that he was happy and comfortable.
Yeah,
So
my previous Papillon at 9 just one day started having issues. Turned out it ended up being pancreatic cancer. We didn't know
oh
at the time.
yeah,
And it was very quick. We were going into the hospital to get fluids drained, whatever. And I asked my vet, you said something that just struck a chord with me. My vet said to me, I said, "What, how will I know?" And she said, "Oh, you'll know." And I'm like, "Well, this woman's crazy. How am I going to know?"
yeah,
And one day my dog looked at me and I'm like, "Oh my God, I know." You just do know because the only thing they ask of you is to just take care of them and to not let them suffer. That's what more can you do? You can't be selfish.
right.
And it was all within like 5 days, which in a way was horrible, but in
Yeah.
a way was good.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a blessing. Because I also wrote For the Life of Your Dog,
Yeah,
which
that's
is a
why I knew that.
care book, and and I talk about that is that the hard goodbye. Now, I found it more challenging when I lost Donna, one of my Great Danes,
Hmm.
unexpectedly. She was still very young, and so that was far more devastating to me because at least with Freeway and Ryan and Leilani, you could see that progression,
Hmm.
and so you kind of know that it was their time, and to
Right.
give them that respect and dignity, as well as as comfort. to see, when you see the joy leave their eyes, it's like, that.
Yeah, and you do, and you also you feel guilty because it's like you're keeping them for you, and that's
Right.
not what you're supposed to do. This
Right.
is so different that I'm seeing the decline versus 5 days, and I see the joy she's still having in her life, but I'm like, I know whether it's in a week, a month, or a year, it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
And I say I'm okay with it. Talk to me when it happens. We'll see.
Oh,
But
no, we're never prepared. No matter how much we
no,
prepare, we're never prepared.
yeah, exactly. Ire
Yeah.
and a dog and blood work and like craziness
Yeah.
all hit you at once, and you wrote about it on social media.
Yeah.
So when everything hits you, and people, we're not going into the story because it's like a soap opera, and
Yeah.
it's a comedy of errors in so many ways. Everything bad that could happen happened, and yet you came through it. Do you think that your training of staying cool and dealing with pressure helps you when things like this happen?
Um, I'm sure it does. I'm sure. because we're, all of our experiences are reflective of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I'm sure it was. And on a happy note, Pax is doing great. She's doing really well.
Thank
And
God.
yeah, she just was competing in a dog agility trial this weekend, and she did really well.
From that story where you're wondering if she's going to make it through the night.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's remarkable. And you coach people. So tell me about the coaching and the tapping, which I also know Lindsay Wagner does and several people do.
EFT. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about this because I'm curious about it.
Well, there's so many modalities that we're learning about. That how you're tapping onto various meridians that and I do acupuncture once a week.
I was going to say, is it connected to acupuncture or
Yeah,
acupressure?
yeah, because it's the same type of energy meridians. But yeah, tapping is a way to kind of focus that energy and move that energy in making shifts and transitions through challenging times, whether it is physical pain, whether it's emotional pain, whether it's a blockage,
Mm-hmm.
of limiting beliefs. So it can be used in so many different ways, but it also becomes a form of meditation where you're kind of identifying what you want to work on and focusing on that and making some shifts in a positive direction to be able to handle various situations.
And how did you get into this? Did you get into this as a patient and then want to become a practitioner?
Well, no, I love the different modalities.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing I did a cranial sacral workshop
Oh, I
in
didn't know that.
assessment, and
Uh-huh.
I was in that, and I was fascinated. It was so funny because like all the people there were probably about a dozen of us, going through the workshop, and everyone has, oh yeah, I'm practicing acupuncture. They practice acupuncture. They want to add craniosacral to their, what their services.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came to me and they said, well, what brings you here? I said, I just want to learn about it. I just want to learn, because I know how, as an athlete, I know how and all my injuries, I know how the body works, how muscles are connected and what muscles do what. And so I know that. So I would understand deep tissue or Rolfing or something like that. But the lighter touch, craniosacral, is a light touch. It's like 5 grams of pressure. And so learning the craniosacral rhythm and being able to get in tune with that, I knew that would be more challenging for me. So I just was out of curiosity, because my massage therapist, Christopher Slate, he practices Reiki uh,
Mhm.
and craniosacral, and as well as sports and deep tissue.
Oh, well, how interesting that he has both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fascinating. And has it helped you? I mean, have you had discernible differences in your life as a result of it?
Well, I think that it helps to have that knowledge,
Hmm.
because then, if you have an awareness, then and this is one thing that I try to encourage, anybody that I work with, to when you get a massage, be an active participant.
Hmm.
Because it's
Yeah,
not
don't
just about,
tune out.
yeah, it's not just about laying on the table and, okay, you do the work. It's not about that. It's about being aware of the touch, the placement, the wherever that their hands go for healing,
Hmm.
and really working on healing yourself.
Well, isn't that the same? I mean, not to go there, but that sounds like also it would connect to sex. That like there are people who just have the act happen versus people who actually are really interacting, and you feel the difference
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with
in
it.
all relationships,
Right.
not just
There's
sexual.
there's not, I get it. I mean, sex as a release, or sex as a connection.
Absolutely, and there's room for both. So
Yeah.
speaking of which, are you having sex? Are you in a
Am I having
relationship right
sex?
now? Not right now, but because
Um,
you've mentioned that you're divorced. Are you in a relationship or are you dating? Where are we in our lives?
you know what? I don't know what to. Yeah. And you know what? I'm also of an age too. Is like, why do we have to? What? Who is who to what? Are we dating? Are we friends? Are we
Right. I
enjoying it?
find that now we're not that far apart. We're just a
Yeah.
little bit apart. I find it's very difficult for people in their 50s, 60s to just date. That people either want to be in a relationship or they just want to have sex. That the
Yeah.
dating, I don't find a lot of people, because I love dating. That is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I don't need like somebody here 24/7. No.
Yeah.
But dating is great. And I don't find that. What about you? What has your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, I can't categorize it. It's like, well, who is so and so? It's like, we're friends. We get together. We have incredible adventures. We share. It's just a connection. If it becomes sexual, then it becomes sexual. If it doesn't, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not a precursor to why we're seeing each other, or why we're spending time with each other. you
So
know
you're not just sitting home alone, sad with the dogs. You're
no,
out there. You're
i
having a little bit of a good time.
I'm out there. The dogs
Okay.
are an important part of the equation, and so who knows what it is.
All right. Well, and this brings us right to the auction. So what was the name of the documentary that you did a few years ago when you were going through all of your stuff?
Oh, back on board. um,
Okay.
yeah, back on
You
board.
had
It was
so much stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so you've now decided to, and I think it's great. I remember when I move, it's great because you also feel a weight lifted off of you getting rid of stuff. Even though you think, "Oh, I want this." Your default is to hold on to
Yeah.
things, but it is wonderful to let things go. What has gotten you to the point to let some things go now?
Well, it's funny because like I'm revisiting Marie Kondo's
Mm.
the magic of tidying,
Right.
and I love what she talks about. That you know if something has served its purpose, then to give it its blessing and in gratitude and let it go.
Hmm.
And really, when you're doing that, you're creating more space for more magic to come in.
And lifting a weight off of you as
Yeah,
well.
it's that weight because the responsibility of the care and maintenance and all that. But if it served its purpose, then then let somebody else enjoy it, or move on. But to create that space for new magic to happen.
Mm-hmm. Is there, I'm going to show some things that you have for auction. Is there something in your life that you cannot think of parting with, that you went through and said, I just can't?
The dogs. That's about it. You know, everything else is just stuff. I'm connected to the dogs, so yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell people. So your website, greglouganis.com, at the very top, there's a banner that you can click on to look at the auction. And there are things there. And a portion of the proceeds tell people where things are going.
Yeah, my hope and dream is to to be able to raise enough money to for the Damien Center. They have a Damien Center Capital campaign because they've outgrown their facility that they're at, and they provide services for HIV/AIDS individuals that whether it is medical, and mental health. If they need groceries, they've got a food bank. But it's kind of a one-stop shop in Indianapolis, and I'm speaking there.
And how did you get involved? How did you get involved with them?
Well, I was aware of them pretty much through through my friendship with Ryan White, who was the young boy who was a hemophiliac, contracted HIV through his clotting factor. And so he and his family became friends of mine. And so that's kind of where I learned about the Damien Center, and just been connected with all the work that they've done. They've done some incredible stuff, and I'd love to raise enough money to be able to donate to them for their Unity Center and the Unity Center and reception, because I feel like, and I want to do it in honor of my mom, Frances Louganis.
That's lovely. So let's look at some things. First, we've got, this is just a kind of a little overview, and, you've got the medals on. How often do you put on the medals?
I don't. I mean, it really has
unless somebody forces you.
Yeah, I mean, it really has to be something special, or they're paying a lot of money. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because they are original ribbons. Now, those, I presume, can have wear and tear, so you don't want to be throwing them around. They've got to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So let's look at individual things. So which medal is this, Greg?
That was from Seoul. So that was the men's 10-meter platform, my last gold medal.
Wow.
And Shunni was leading going into the last dive, and I pulled it out with my last dive, just barely squeaking by him.
Is there a medal that has the most sentimental value, like your first or your last, or which one?
Well, each one has a story.
Yeah, of course.
Medal. And that's the thing about the medals, is that I'm still alive. I mean, so when you get the medal, then I can share that story with you, what that was like, the process, standing up on the 10-meter platform, getting ready for my last dive, what was going through my head, what I was feeling, what the crowd was like, all of that. So all of that goes with the medal, that whole history, and story.
Yeah, and I guess we should tell people that there are 2 medals for sale, and you will personally deliver the 3. Okay, 3. Yeah, and you will personally deliver them and sit down with the person and explain the history of the medal. Yeah. And where are the other medals? Since we brought it up, where are the medals that are not part of the sale?
Okay, so my gold medal from the '88 Olympic Games after I hit my head on the board. I'm not a fighter. I'm a performer. And so I knew after I hit my head on the board that I had to, pull from that fighter, and who was my inspiration was Ryan White. And
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
that, and so I gave that medal to Jeannie White because he was my inspiration to get through that very, very difficult time. So that medal is at
Isn't it amazing that that a child can really have that impact on you?
yeah. Well, I didn't realize how many medals I had given him because I guess uh, Jeannie White, his mom, scrapbooks, and so she has all these scrapbooks and all that for his life, and she has a USA national medal. She has a Pan American gold medal. She has, I give my medals away, and she's got an Olympic gold medal, and then the other Olympic gold medal from the 1984 Olympic Games on 10-meter platform. That was like a dream come true competition for me in Los Angeles. It was beautiful weather. It was just incredible. And at that competition, I felt like my coach, Ron O'Brien, and I were just dancing. I mean, it was just so
A
beautiful. Everything
partnership, right?
was just, it was like a pas de deux. It was just wonderful that we were joking and laughing and dancing, and it was just incredible. And I broke 700
Hmm.
on 10-meter platform, which was a huge, huge deal. And so I presented that medal to my coach, Ron O'Brien, on my wedding day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We have you. Oh, this one surprised me. So this is
Oh,
an Olympic bowl from 1960. Now, how did you get this? And there's
you
two.
know,
Is there two of them?
yeah, yeah, there's a set. Well,
Okay.
that was my father. My father, Peter Louganis, he was Greek and just obsessed with the Olympic Games. So when I
Really?
had a son who went to the Olympic Games, yeah, I mean he collected some really interesting things. I mean, he even purchased the 1976 Olympic coins that they did for Montreal. And
Oh, sure.
yeah, he was pretty obsessed with the Olympic Games, but with the Olympics coming from Greece, it was,
Oh, let me just show this because I'm seeing some comments. So first, our mutual friend Darren says, "Love me some Greg." Thank you, Darren.
oh, thank you, Dan.
I have God, Darren. I miss you. I haven't seen you since you moved. I hate that. And Tom Wise said, "Bless you for remembering Catherine. She loved performing with you." So
Oh, Catherine Scatula, I adored. I mean, okay, so I got a funny story. So,
okay, go ahead.
okay, Doug Johnson was our dance captain.
Hmm.
And so, and in one of the final scenes when I'm coming up, to try the slipper on
Hmm.
Cinderella, and so the sisters, who is Catherine Scatula and Pamela Myers, um, they come to the door to check, and they're looking out the door. They open the door, and I think one time I was standing on my hands. When they open the door, only they can see it. The audience didn't see it.
It's just to make
Um,
them laugh.
yeah, yeah. And then another time, I think that we mooned them. We hold our pants down. It's like, trying to get them to break on stage. Um, the funniest moment was when I came out with Pat Carroll, who was the fairy godmother.
Hmm.
He had a mustache as the herald, and then I don't know, it blew off during one of her, speeches and fell into the orchestra pit. And then she goes on about the molting herald. And I just went along for the ride. It was like, okay, I'm on stage with a professional. I'm just going to go with this, and it was just an amazing, amazing group of people. Loved it. I even performed with Catherine, with Pamela at the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
People come in and out of our lives. I mean, it's
yeah.
you, and again, I last saw you. That picture was taken when you did Valley of the Dolls, but it was
Oh,
the most recent one, which
oh,
you've gone
yeah.
in and out of. How many times now? Was it
Oh,
three?
yeah. Steve Tyler kind of dusts me off. Okay, props me up and says, "Okay,
Puts you back
here you
out there.
go. Here you go."
And
Yeah,
he also gets a very loyal people who come back time and time again.
yeah. He's got a good group of friends.
Yeah. Okay. We also have, there's a silver and that's beautiful. That's on a chain. That's not a
Yeah,
ribbon.
yeah. I mean, and that whole story. I mean, it's not a real happy story either.
Oh, no.
Because I felt like a loser. I went there to win. I didn't go there to take second.
Right.
And then I didn't understand. I was still in high school. I was a sophomore in high school. And I didn't understand why everybody was celebrating me when that was like
Second
an
place.
embarrassment. An embarrassment. I thought that I let everybody down. And so there was so much confusion over that. It took decades before I could hold that medal with any type of pride.
How were the people around you, the close people, like your family, your coach, were they feeling like you, or were they feeling more like the outside people celebrating it?
They were celebrating, well, except my coach at that time was Dr. Sammy Lee. He was
Right. Oh, right.
he was really pissed. So, never forgave me for that. But that was the only one. My parents, they were proud.
Right.
They were celebrating it, and I just didn't understand why they were celebrating.
Second.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
the world. Let's
yeah.
just put it in perspective.
Billy, you know what? And this brings up a terrific point: is that there's more suicides amongst Olympic silver medalists.
Really?
Yeah, that's the highest rate of suicides amongst Olympians. It's Olympic silver medalists.
So it's the ones that get that close.
Yeah, and
If they didn't get onto that, if they were that far away, they probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, but I understand. Again, we're talking about elite athletes who
right.
train for that moment, as we know.
Yeah,
I'm watching, and I'm sure you could identify with it. Watching Tom Daly's every time just getting so close. I mean, at least he got the gold in synchro, but you're like, it all comes down to that moment, that day,
right. Yeah,
and
it is. I mean, it's like Whitney Houston, a moment in time.
yeah.
But,
Oh, that's right. Was that the year that was that Los Angeles?
no, I think that was Seoul. I think.
Oh, was that Seoul? Okay.
Whitney's what a moment in time was Seoul, Korea. I think so.
Yeah. But wow. And that does sum it up. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got this one. This one is older, I guess.
Yeah, that was 1984, Los Angeles.
Okay.
And it's interesting, it's men's springboard. So that's my first gold medal. And it's so funny because I can watch the award ceremony and I can tell which one is the springboard and which one's the platform. Because in springboard, I'm pretty reserved, as my mind, my thinking is, okay, I still have 10-meter platform.
I'm looking ahead. Right.
I was preparing for the next event, but after platform, I just lost it. I mean, it was just like tears, and it's like, oh my God, I did it. Yeah, that was, I mean, the joy and gratitude, and it was just there. But on the springboard, I was thinking ahead. I still got
you can't let go.
Yeah.
What was the transition for you from springboard to platform? Now, as much as I dove, I went from 1 to 3, which was no big deal. I mean, it was a big deal, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
I never even jumped off platform ever. I think I would be terrified.
It's interesting because one of the coaches, Scott Rich, he said that I'm the one diver that that he said could make that transition from springboard to platform easily.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think it's easy for
And
anybody.
yeah, because the timing is very, very different. The sensibility is very, very different. And the way that I think of it, the way that I approached it, it's a change of rhythm. So change that rhythm and to match the event, where springboard there's more fluidity, in the
And control. You
motion.
learn how to feel the
Right.
board.
Right. And then on platform, it's much more explosive. So it's that quick, more percussive energy. So tapping into that energy to make those transitions was how I was able to be as successful as I did on both 3-meter springboard and 10-meter platform at the same time.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. How long, once you went on platform for the first time, how long did it take till you were competition ready to attempt that?
Well, I told Scott, I said, pretty much all I had to do is do a few jumps
And figure
and
out the timing.
figure out that, okay, this is it. This is what it is.
Wow. Again, is there anything that you've done as a diver that you wonder how I did it, or does it all make sense to you?
I helped a friend of mine with his book, Dr. Don Green. He was a sports psychologist. It's not that we worked together when I was diving, but he observed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he reached out and he said, well, do you want to work together? I'd really like you to be a case study for my new book, Train Your Own Hero.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked with him, and in working with him, I understood much, much clearer why I was as successful as I was, because performance is right brain. Logic, calculation, judgment, all that's left brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of how my brain works, is that when like my balance might be off on a takeoff, then I don't think that I'm not thinking mechanics. I'm thinking change the tempo, which stays in your right brain,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to make those adjustments instantaneous. And so it's, and also sensation. It may be a sensation that I have. Maybe it's like, I feel it in my belly button, or my shoulders need to relax, or something. And I just focus on a body part.
It's interesting. When I went to 3-meter, my coach said to me, I look at your face and I see you're playing everything that could go wrong. And you cannot think that way, because then it will go wrong.
Right.
And that was a very big lesson for me, is to let go of that. But that's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is a leap of faith, because if you think about it,
literally.
Yeah, it is literally, because, it's a dive takes less than 3 seconds.
Mm.
A dive takes less than 3 seconds. And in that 3 seconds is chaos. And in that chaos is your creation.
Mm-hmm. And letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that,
you can't control it. You can't control it.
And it's quieting everything else around you, which I have gone back and seen your dives, and you're so good at focusing, but not hyper focusing. It looks very zen. I don't know if it was at that time. I bet it became that way for you.
Yeah, I mean, you practice something. And that's a part of it, is practicing letting go. When, early in your training, like the first part of the year and you're just getting back in shape, it's about the numbers, quantity rather than quality. When you get closer to the competition, then you may be doing lists. And so it's all about the quality. And so focus on the quality, and you only have one try. You have only one shot at it.
Did you have video when you were training? Because we just had it in my place, and I found that invaluable because I never occurred to me, what does it look like? You got to trust somebody.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because my coach Ron O'Brien, he would sit down with just about every other diver and go through the videos and analyze. No, you need to do this, you need to do that, and all that. But he wouldn't. He would do that with me sometimes, but not very much, because he knew that I would probably obsess over it, and that would be kind of more of a stumbling block than be beneficial. Right. So he knew that the way that I learned things is more through sensation, and also the other thing that I would tap into is color or tempo, and all of that is right brain,
right?
Or a sense of smell. I mean, there was one competition, it was Madrid World Championships, and I had trouble sometimes picking up my spots on my front and inward 3.5. And so it was an indoor facility, and so I was on my inward 3.5. It's an indoor pool, so the smell of the chlorine wafts off the surface of the water. So I smell chlorine, and then it would go away, and smell the chlorine that gets stronger. So that's how I found where I was spatially, and in relationship to the pool.
Do you, as an actor, are you able to look at like dailies or videos of your performances, or like diving, would that get you too in your head with, oh, why am I doing it that way, or trying to find that way again?
Well, it's, if I'm looking at video, then, and with the director, and they give me their notes, then what I'll do is I'll go through it and go through it until I can feel it.
Oh, okay.
Once I feel it, then it's a part of me.
So it's really getting that sensation correct.
Right.
It does. See, I found that sometimes you see video and it can make you self-conscious.
Yeah, sure.
Which, is the last thing you want. So it's interesting. I love this next item. The Speedo. So people who don't swim or dive competitively and hold on to the Speedos know nothing sadder than an old Speedo, because the elastic goes and it becomes crinkly.
But I did put it on for my 60th day.
And there you have, boy, you set me up perfectly, Greg.
I did.
So look at you.
Birthday. So yeah.
And I will point out to people that the Speedo does say 28, and the Speedo 28 is its own little world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's got to be something, though. I mean, what year did you use this Speedo in?
I think that was it was somewhere between 84 and 88, because
wow.
I generally, before 84, I always wore a black Speedo. It was always black. I mean, when I first started, it was a yellow Mike Pepe. Do you remember did you ever have a Mike Pepe bathing suit?
No, I've never even heard of Mike Pepe.
And they like come up over your navel. I mean, they were like high risers. It was like, and
I don't remember those
that's
at
what we
all.
used to dive in. And I had a yellow Mike Pepe, and I did a little embroidery on it with the lion's head. It was just, yeah.
Were you able to, when you're competing, people should know that there is typically a team suit.
Yeah.
So if you had something that you felt strong about, which I know you did with your chamois as well. These were things that you kept with you. If you had to change team suits, were you okay with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was fine. Yeah, and
Because that's
that's
personal.
that's one of the things that that I learned is you don't want to get too wrapped up in ritual or uh,
Mm,
a favorite suit, or you have to have that chamois. You don't want to get too tied into that, because what if it's not there? What if
right,
it,
right.
you know, um, I remember a story from the 76 Olympic Games. Falk Hoffman had a bathing suit. It was his favorite suit,
Hmm.
and lost the drawstring. So they couldn't show any of his dives because they had an underwater camera. And every time he did a dive, he lost his suit. So, yeah, but, uh, the things we do, right? To think that we're giving ourselves an advantage of some sort. Yeah, you can put yourself in a corner that you can't get out of sometimes.
Yeah, well, because again, you become a slave to the ritual or to the
Right,
object.
right.
Um, I used to feel better when I didn't know where family was in the stands.
Yeah.
Were you good knowing when people that could you hear? Because I could always hear a certain person cheer or applaud. And I hated that because it personalized the audience. I really wasn't that great with that.
Well, it was funny because the most memorable experience that I had with a family member in the audience was when I did Dan Butler's show. The only thing where she could have told me, because the first character was kind of a potty mouth, and
Hmm.
he said the C word. I mean, he was, F bombs all over the place, and all. And I was thinking, oh my God, my mother's going to see this. Yeah, and I knew she was in the audience. And it's like, oh, as soon as I hear her cough, then I probably would be done with, because I knew because when I did it, I did Equus at University of
Hmm.
Miami, and I played
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I played Nugget and the Young Horseman, and
Wow.
my mother came to the production, and we changed
Mm.
it to Americanize it a bit. So rather than bugger off, I say that F off.
Hmm.
And then after that performance, my mother said, I was about to run up there and take you by the arm and wash your mouth out with soap. I'm like, oh shit. And then when I was doing the only thing worse you could have told me, Dan Butler's show, I was like, oh my God, my mother's gonna like march me off that stage and be washing my mouth out with soap. But yeah, so that was the only thing. Usually it was a positive thing. Like at diving competitions, I always wanted to see where my mom was, because she was
Oh,
always
wow.
a strong influence. I could always look down and she'd give me a thumbs up, or she'd remind me to smile, or she was just very, very comforting to have.
Cool. Um, so this was your book, or no, the video, excuse me. There's the DVD, Looking to the
Mhm.
Light, which there's only a few left. You have found like the last, what is it, 14, I think?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a lot up there, so people
Yeah.
can get things like that.
And Looking to the Light, it didn't get a whole lot of attention, but
Hmm.
it really goes through a lot of the challenges that I had in the transition. Transitioning from the Olympics into real life. Um, I was struggling. Uh,
Well, because your identity was locked into your performance. So,
right.
what do you do when that? I mean, obviously, the best thing to do is transition to replace it. But, when you're the best of the best in that high, that's not an easy thing to replace.
Right. Well, one of the things I also went into training to do the California AIDS ride.
Hmm.
So that was kind of a part of that journey, in that through line, um, it's a bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles to raise funds and awareness to HIV/AIDS. And so to be a part of that was really incredible. And it was wonderful. And, just taking that journey because right before I was in rehab. Mm-hmm. And so that gave me something positive to focus on. And so I learned a lot about myself. And there was a lot of growth, since then too.
Well, because it seems like, again, you've shown the dogs, you are coaching, you're a very spiritual person, which has worked so well for you. Is there something that you haven't done or an opportunity that you just feel passed you by?
I don't think,
not that it seems like you don't live that way. So I know I'm asking you to do something you don't do.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate everything that I've been able to do. And open to, new experiences. I've traveled the world. I've seen the world in a very special way. So that's not super high on my list of priorities. Right. Because when I was traveling as an athlete, we were kind of ambassadors to our country. And so we met, royalty,
everybody,
and all these people, and they roll out the red carpet for you and have events for you. And, and that's a very special way to see a foreign country and learn about the culture. So,
but isn't it nice to see it just as a regular person as well?
Yeah, I'm learning that. It's, definitely, places that, that I really enjoy, but I also enjoy getting in the RV and traveling across the country and moving a little bit slower and taking time to, visit parks and go hiking and, and because there's wonderful little places all over our country.
Is there like a goal at this point, like that you're like, oh, you know what I want to do?
Well, okay. My goal is I would love to have in my mind, it's a dog joe. It's kind of like a health and wellness center for dogs and humans, for canine humans. More on the holistic front, looking at the whole person, the whole animal. And I also compete in dog agility, and I've got a little guy that has a lot of talent. So, my hopes for, potential world team. So what's that like? What are the things that go into that type of training, that type of journey? So kind of,
it really seems like you have an awfully busy life.
It's, it's funny. I think most people assume that I'm busy, so I get busy myself. So if people aren't calling and telling me, oh, we want you here, we want you there, I'll figure something out. Like I'll enter more trials, dog agility trials. I'll do more workshops and seminars to get G ready for higher competitions. And so, so I'll find something to do.
But there's also a financial side. You have to work. You have to pay bills. You have to keep yourself busy. And that was one of the things I loved about that documentary, because I think people forget. I always think to myself, we see somebody, say, on a sitcom, and they were really hot in the 80s, and then they're not working as much, and you think everybody is set. And then you see they do autograph shows or they do personal appearances because they have to pay the bills. One of my best friends will see somebody in a movie and she'll say that was their health insurance role.
Right.
Because it's a reality. And I don't think civilians get that Everybody has to pay bills. And I don't think I've seen anyone quite as honest with that as you when
Well,
you were talking about, in the thing, trying to get a mortgage, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was the financial side of
yeah.
how do I do this and still do all the stuff that I'm doing? It's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, because so many people make assumptions, oh, if you're
Yeah.
famous,
Oh, he's
if,
set for life.
yeah, if you're famous, then you're wealthy, you're rich. And it's like, fame and wealth don't always go hand in hand. And also, I mean, timing too, it's like,
Right.
there's a lot of opportunities that, kind of passed me by because I'm who I am.
And we'll say it again. I said it last time you're here, and I say it in the column every once in a while. Dancing with the Stars. For
Dancing with
God's sakes, what does he have to do to get on Dancing with the Stars? They
yeah,
did a whole sports edition, and
yeah.
they still didn't ask you. How is that
Well,
possible?
I what what I learned what happened was
Oh,
that they felt that I passed them by, that I chose Splash when Splash
the
came.
diving show.
Yeah, so they offered me Dancing with the Stars at that time. Well, I had already
Oh,
had a contract with, to do Splash. And so they were all pissed off that I chose Splash, even though it's the same network. I chose that Splash over Dancing with the Stars.
oh, for
So, but
God's
I mean,
sakes.
who else is going to do, a diving show? That,
Right, that you are the go-to.
yeah. So, and I had already, we had already done the contract and all that. And we did try to work out, if I could possibly do both, but the schedules wouldn't permit. So, yeah. So I think they're really pissed off that they feel that I chose the
Them over
no
the
over them.
Just ask him to be on Dancing with the Stars, for God's sakes. Now it's on Disney Plus. Get him before it ends up on YouTube, please. Because, my God. And you mentioned Splash. I know we got to wrap up. I've been going so long. I'm so sorry.
I
But
know.
what I loved on Splash was the relationship with Louis Anderson.
Oh, I adore
It was so First off, the courage
Yeah,
of that man. Again, I'm sitting here telling you what I would do and not do.
yeah,
I wouldn't do that. And I have a background. I wouldn't do it. I thought it was so beautiful what he did.
yeah. I mean, I love Louis so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just a really wonderful spirit, and we did. We had a history,
Oh,
with Hollywood Squares.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were on Hollywood Squares together, and that's where we met.
Oh, how funny.
He was just about. We were, I think, in Florida. We were taping in Florida, and that was right before he was doing his Let's Do Lunch tour, or with Roseanne
Mhm.
Barr.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but he's always been such a sweet. He had been such a sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Splash
met
was such
him.
a great show because people who don't understand, it's one thing to teach somebody to dance, and maybe I'm giving more credit to diving, but diving is so much can go wrong that
Right.
the fact that you got people to do it was just extraordinary. I just loved it. Okay, we do have to wrap. So, people, go to greglouganis.com. Greg, when does the auction close? Is it different times for things? Some things are already gone.
Um, yeah, a lot of things. They pulled. Yeah, they paid. A price that they just got it.
Right,
So
the
yeah. So a
medals are
lot of
like that. I know that.
yeah. Well, yeah, the medals, they don't. They're not closing on December 4th. That is a bit more open because it's what we're looking for is the right situation. So
Right. And
you
again,
know,
these are gold medals from the
yeah,
greatest diver in history. And he's
yeah.
going to have dinner with you and tell you stories.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
for sure.
Greg, it is always fabulous talking to you. I can't wait till I'm back in LA and I can actually see you again in person
Yeah,
because it's been too
yeah,
long. Definitely.
yeah. We'll get together, do
But
lunch or dinner or something.
yeah, exactly. Right. We'll do that soon. But
Yeah.
please have a great Thanksgiving. Love to the dogs
You
and
too.
be well.
Okay, thank you so much. You take care.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Greg Louganis, everybody. Greg, if you stick around for a second, I'm going to wrap up right now. Everybody, thanks for watching Billy Masters Live. If you're traveling for Thanksgiving, be careful, be safe. Don't take any unnecessary risks. Have a safe and happy holiday with your families. We will be back next week. Next week, we are paying tribute to Leslie Jordan with some friends of his, so you won't want to miss that. Until next time, just remember, I am Billy Masters, and if we're here, we're live. Bye, guys.